What he said is that I wanted a government of, by, and for
the people.
Right, but what do we have now? That we have now a government of the bankers, by the bankers, and for the bankers, Jim. Look, and until we understand that, nothing can or will ever change in this country. Nothing. Look, this Obama guy, look, he might be a nice guy and all this other sort of stuff. He's classy. But look at that his people that he brought in. That who's heading up at the Treasury? The #1 guy from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. That's the controlling bank. Nothing's going to change. Then who's on his own staff now within the White House? Paul Volcker. Right, but who is he now? He actually ran the Federal Reserve in Reagan's administration. You can't expect things to change as long as the Federal Reserve is in place. It has to be abolished overnight, not gradually, because it will never work. Overnight. Now, Jim, let's look at the #3. We just hit on that now. Jim, please go on.
Does the President of the United States government control the economy?
Well, let me ask you this now, too. With you people out there now, do you assume that the President of the United States actually controls the economy of the United States? Most of you are probably going to say yes. Right, after all, he's the elected. Look, that's our commander-in-chief. But George Bush, Reagan, Bush #1, Clinton, they have no control over the amount of money that the Federal Reserve is going up to circulate. The Federal Reserve is in control of this. We no longer have a government that we run. Come on, people, look and see what's going on. It's everywhere. Jim, so what does that book say now?
The Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, is the most important monetary public-making body of the Federal Reserve System. It is responsible for the formulation of policy designed to promote economic growth, full employment, stable prices, and balance in international trade and payments.
Jim, let me ask you this now. Is that nothing but a great big joke? Look, that's a slap upon each one of us, the American people there. Two, as long as the Federal Reserve is in place, that we could never have full employment. Because if we do, the system now it would collapse because the Federal Reserve was not formed for that. Jim, the whole system now that would collapse. And then we have stable prices. Come on, give me a break. No. We haven't had that, Jim, for probably 100 years.
Yeah.
But look, guys, this is a fact, that before 1913 now, with the inception of the Federal Reserve Act, the Federal Reserve people themselves state that prior to that year, and for the last 100 years, the United States people did not suffer under any inflationary tendencies at all.
George Washington
Zero.
Paid the same for a loaf of bread as Abraham Lincoln did.
Exactly right. Now, so what does this say? That why aren't you guys upset? Why aren't you people now calling us up here and say, what can we do? How can we expose this? That's what it's about. This system has to be abolished. Jim, let's look at the next one. On #4. This just proves now exactly what Jim and I have been going down this road now, is that the President does not control the total supply of money that we need for our system to work right. And without money, this system is collapsing right before our eyes, and George Bush can't do anything about it if he wanted to. See, that's the question. If I was in his shoes, this system would be abolished overnight. There would be an executive order signed that the Federal Reserve notes would be recalled, and the United States notes now would be in place that same very night, too. And if the bankers didn't go along with that, they would be in jail, right? Because they are destroying this country, and we cannot allow that to happen. No way. That's not going to happen, okay? Jim, let's read that very slowly now, and you people listen to this. This is not our words. This here now, there's the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. This here is the controlling bank. Jim, read that, please.
The Bureau of Engraving and Printing in Washington, D.C. is a unit of the Treasury. It is responsible for printing the nation's currency.
Stop right there. We look at the news now, that we see it now, and what does it show? Day after day after day, that the American government is creating all these Federal Reserve notes.
Increasing the money supply, I think that's how they put it on the news.
Yeah, but what it does, though, Jim, that it allows the least sophisticated consumers out there to logically conclude that the government that is creating the money. Look, the government does create the money, but the order to print comes from who? Not the president, but from who?
Federal Reserve Chairman.
Jim, read on.
But its order to print comes from the 12 Federal Reserve banks, not the President or Congress.
Now stop right there, Jim. What do you think that means in layman's terms?
That means that the Federal Reserve decides how much money supply there is, not our government.
What's our system about, Jim? Is that aligned with our type of government?
No, well, it's aligned with today's government, but with the constitutional republic that we're supposed to be living in,
right,
that's about as wrong as you can be.
If you go back now, that I would conclude that that would be one of the main steps in communism. Would you agree with me?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
controlling the money supply.
Yep. Central bank.
Right, so what's going to occur now, that these people control whether or not that you even work. Is that true?
Yes.
Right. What does the Constitution say? That I have the rights to do what? Liberty, pursuit?
Liberty for pursuit of happiness any way you, as long as you do not infringe upon the rights of another, you can do whatever you want.
So let me ask you this. How can these guys that we elect allow this to happen? Or who do they really work for?
Who do they work for?
That's the thing now that I want to know, because I believe that these people represent the bankruptcy of the United States, and they're nothing more than trustees. All right, that says a whole bunch. So get this now. If George Bush now called up and said, look, you guys, I believe that the total supply of money is that we're a little bit short, and what we're going to do, we're going to create $5 billion. Bernanke has the power to tell George Bush, we don't have to listen to you. We actually control and dictate monetary policies to you. We're in control. That is so adverse to our way of life and our thinking that that I'm just amazed that the American people are still asleep. So another thing is this now. When you look at the newspapers, it said, the Feds raise interest rates. The Feds raise this. The Feds lower this. Jim, what do you think they're telling those people out there that don't know what the Fed is? People conclude that that's part of the American government.